All right, we're back. It has been a minute. I feel like we've said this a few times. I feel like, hey guys, we're back. We're gonna get routine on this, and then lo and behold, 8 months go by. What's been going on though? Why have we not been recording a podcast
Well,
despite our best intentions?
I think we're allowed to have a few excuses, and I know everyone's COVID excuse is kind of overdone, but COVID really impacted us, ups and downs.
That's not it. It's the wedding.
That too, but it's all of it. The last 6 months, we're still, working through closures at our gym and kind of navigating through that. We had to cancel our wedding again since the last 6 months,
We're
and
married
then
now.
we
I
are
got my
married.
fitness ring on. Look, I'm recording. We're recording on camera for the first time. So we've taken a minute, but now we've got more innovative, which is exciting.
Yeah, so I think that now that we can really truly relax and just have a good, focus on our plan, and hopefully this will become a lot more regular. And now we have a live.
We don't know where to look. Obviously, we're amateurs. And like, do we look at each
Yeah,
other like normally, like in a conversation, or do we look up there? But then I can't get the feedback from my face. So you guys are just gonna have to bear with us.
we'll figure it
But
out.
there's just some. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts because that's what you do when you do something like this. I mean, everyone's listening to podcasts, right? And I think we're going to talk today. Today's podcast is all about resistance training. And our thesis really is that all exercise is not created equal. And it's more than a thesis, it's been proven, but we feel it's our duty to really share what we know about this, what we've learned anecdotally, what we've learned through research, not doing the research so much, but of course, reading the research, but also being educated in the field. So we're going to touch on resistance training. We're going to get deeper than we usually do, specifically on the benefits in the moment and then the outcomes. But before we get into that, as business owners, we've had a massive change, and this has been part of why we haven't been able to do podcasts. So I don't know how many of you guys know. If you're new to this podcast, you may not know that Andy and I were a single F45 owned, a couple that own one F45, and then we embarked with partners to open a second F45. And man, that was a crazy journey. That was it looked on the surface, it's like the iceberg thing, right? Oh, you did it for 9 months, but actually it was like a 2.5 year journey looking for real estate and everything.
Yeah.
And my goodness, did that ever consume a lot of time? And we learned a ton from that. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you're listening to this, obviously, focus is really important, and time is finite. And we were finding that we weren't able to do actually because, we needed to sort of, the way our approach is and our business at F45 is, it's all community driven. We were sort of getting pulled in two different directions and weren't able to do these extra little things for our community, like do the podcast. So we're super excited to be back now that we've parted ways with Alton. Alton is now with great owners who all they do is F45, and they have another F45 in Burlington. So we're super excited for them to come on and continue on with that community that we started. But at the same time, we're super excited to be able to give our heart, our time back to our Hamilton community and the broader community that listens to this by really, investing that extra time and sharing some of the good news that we're learning with you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to do anything half-assed.
That's
Really.
right. That's
And I think that really is why it's been more stressful for us during the last little while, because like wedding, COVID, extra business, that we were all trying to navigate all those things. It was just too many plates spinning. And not to say that it's impossible or that we couldn't handle it. It's just because we want to go all in on all of those things, and we really were able to do a lot of those things still with all of our effort. It just takes away it's got to take away from something.
right. Something's got to give.
So that's just where it was a non-negotiable for us moving forward. So
we're back. Yeah. So excited to be here. Cool. Well, yeah, we wanted to talk about resistance training today, and this big idea that all exercise is not created equal. But before we can get into it, why did we think that this was important to talk about? What was the impetus, particularly as we entered into our 4th summer as business owners, that made us feel like, hey, we should really share some news on this stuff?
It's definitely the trend of the summer season that people start to, I mean, it's not just the summer season, but winter season as well. But they're, especially in the summer, people are just much more likely to come into the gym less and take some early days or early afternoons, whether that's during the week or on the weekends. They're going on a lot more vacations. They want to play sports outside, which is great. So we'll touch on that as well. But
Which I love.
If we consider golf a sport, okay, it's a sport. It's not an active sport. It's not something that I really think replaces a workout. So we'll be clear on that. But the problem is a lot of people have actually come to us saying, going to put my membership on hold because
I have a new bike and I'm going to ride it all
I
summer.
have a bike, or I'm going to go on runs, and I'm
Which,
going
by
to
the
the
way,
cottage all
again,
the time.
let's
So
be very clear. We don't hate on that stuff. I'm an avid tennis player.
hate on that.
Running
I
specifically.
I don't like any steady state cardio. So
But
to each their own.
that's right, exactly. But this podcast is not to say that those things are unhealthy. I play tennis 3 to 4 times a week, maybe more than I should, hardcore, right? And it takes a lot of nutritional intervention and electrolyte management for me to be able to sustain that. But I'm very realistic about my goals. I know that for me, strength training is really just maintaining what I have. Eating enough protein and getting my body under load allows me to maintain what I have and still go out there and put in 6 hours a week hard in the sun, sweating. And
that replaces your cardio workouts for sure. And I think that that's something that we need to clarify, that not every workout isn't just the same as a workout.
Right. And we got to be real too about our goals, right? I mean, I think we all are creatures of wanting it all. I want to have the biggest biceps, the fastest sprint time, the best triathlon. I always go with triathlon because there's so many amazing triathletes in our community. Yeah. But we want it all, and that's just our nature, right? But we have to be reasonable. Like if we're going to go do cardio on that level, then really the strength training is still important, but you're not going to be going on stage, to compete in a bodybuilding competition at the same time, or get your most gains in the gym when you're ripping cardio that hard, right? So, anyways, let's get into it. We're going to talk about some key ideas that really make resistance training give it a gold star. And the big thing that we've been seeing in the research lately is that if you had 30 minutes a day to work out, or let's say you had four days a week to train and only 30 minutes, you've got to make a choice. What do you choose? And the studies are showing resistance training should be that choice for long-term quality of life, cerebral benefits, musculoskeletal benefits, benefits to the bone, hormonal benefits, and we're going to jump into them. So the first one we want to talk about is this idea of metabolism. So to put it simply, our muscles are the most metabolically active tissues in our body. They're expensive. It's like having a V8 car versus a V4. The more muscle you have, the more calories you're going to burn for unit everything you do, be it a walk down the street, be it sleeping, lying at rest, eating, training in the gym, of course, playing sports. The more muscle you have moving, more metabolically active tissue you have, the more calories you're going to burn in anything you do. So why is that important? It's important because
you can just burn while you sleep and while you sit there doing nothing.
Exactly. I mean, when we think about body recomposition and we think about getting into those, sub 20s for the men, those kind of low 20s for the ladies, having that advantage, like, if I have 25% more muscle than Andy, then one can assume that I'm going to be burning a significantly higher amount of calories in there, right? I mean, it's simple math. And so when we think about recomposition, having muscle that's so metabolically expensive is very, very important. And so we're going to get into insulin sensitivity later. We're going to get into sort of the health benefits of it. But, what I'm talking about right now is that sort of lean body unit, everything I do, burning more energy. And the way that I build muscle, of course, I need inputs, I need protein, I need recovery, I need rest, and then I need the stimulus, which is resistance training, right? And so the resistance training, not the same as a run. Yes, if I go for a run every day, I'm going to build there's going to be capillarization in my legs and my tissues. I'm going to be building up some muscle mass and some slow twitch muscle fiber hypertrophy. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's going to be very local to, say, the calves. But in terms of that sort of systemic increase of muscle mass, that's what we get from a well-balanced resistance training program.
And of course, the support of your entire skeleton, not just your lower body, which can take a beating from overuse with running and cycling, all those things, like your joints and
just imagine doing bicep curls every day. That's all you did, right? Your elbows would be shot, right? It's the same idea.
Yeah, exactly. So I think along with strength training, I think the other thing that's important to note is that strength training, a lot of people assume that, I need to lift, I need to lift heavy. And everyone talks about as long as you lift weights, go ahead and lift weights and don't do anything else, and you'll probably like your physique a lot more. Very true. But I think a lot of people are scared by hearing I have to lift weights, or I
Right.
have to lift,
Those
right?
words
So
in
the
and of
word
themselves.
lift is just so, yeah.
Be under load, like I said.
Yeah. And although all of that is very true, and the more that you can work yourself up to, the better. We're talking like full on, you can do body weight resistance.
That's
You
right.
can use resistance bands. Like the word resistance overall, like Pilates is resistance. And I think that if you're working on engaging the muscles and you're strengthening your muscles, that's resistance training, that's strength training. So that's what you want to focus on. It does not need to be, okay, now I got to go to the gym and do these ridiculous squats, and that's the first thing that you do.
That's
so if
right.
you're new to strength training, don't let that scare you. You can totally start with body weight and already feel those impacts right away.
Well, if you break the word down, resistance training, what are you resisting? Well, gravity. Gravity is pushing down in your body. So if you're doing a body weight squat, it's the, getting into that squat position. Gravity's acting on your body and you're coming back up to that standing position, contracting your legs, thus resisting the force of gravity. You're using a tricep press down machine and the pulleys are acting on the plate stack that's moving up vertically against gravity. Resistance. You're resisting that, right? Resisting a force.
This is making me think of Star Wars for some reason. The resistance and the force.
They were onto something.
Yeah.
I can tell you, the metaphors are real.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of, are we past the subject of metabolism?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the idea, we're going to have themes that sort of blend together, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, we want a healthy metabolism. Our metabolism should be responsive. We should be able to consume calories, and our body put those calories to use. It shouldn't just automatically turn to fat. The more muscle we have, the better we're going to be able to deal, the more metabolic flexibility we're going to have. And that's a key element of a quality life in the long run.
And just to also get a little bit backtracked here on metabolism, your BMR, what you burn at rest, is going to be different for everyone. So you can do body scanners that will tell you that and give you a little bit of an idea. Or you can also do some Mueller equations, things like that, that will give you an idea based off of your height, weight, age, all those kinds of things. That's the amount of calories that you will burn at rest, even if you didn't move all day long. Then you add on top of that your NEAT, so the non-exercise activity thermogenesis. I say thermogenesis.
Either way.
And then TEF is the thermic effect of food is added into that. And then you have your exercise component, which is actually accounts for a quite small amount. But if you actually look at the percentages, your exercise accounts for like 5% of your total BMR, which sounds a little bit discouraging. But if we go back to how increasing muscle mass now increases that baseline number, that's why it's so important to not focus on that 5% of, oh, can I burn hundreds of more calories by doing a cardio workout? But if you look at your Fitbit or you look at whatever tracker you have, yes, it'll look like you have burned more by having your heart rate up for longer or higher. But if that's only accounting for that 5% of that day, but in the long run, you'll be able to build that main number up, which is the most important one, your baseline. Strength training or having more muscle mass is the only thing that will be able to change that number to elevate so that you're burning more at rest.
I can't remember what the equation was. Was it 5 pounds of muscle equals, I don't know, or 1 pound of muscle is about 10 calories extra on your BMR a day. But, that seems like not a lot, but when you add it up, day over day, 365 days a year, you put on 15 pounds of muscle, it's another 150 calories. It adds up for sure. Cool. I think the next thing is this idea of, aesthetics a little bit, because it's okay to talk about aesthetics, by the way, guys. I know everyone's afraid to do it these days, but what the hell not? Let's talk about aesthetics, right? And even the interest in training, right? And how to keep it fresh. So like,
but I don't want to look like a bodybuilder.
Yeah. You know what? And then the next line from that one is, good luck. You probably won't. I've been trying for years and I still can't. But, I think the thing is, that we should acknowledge, by the way, is our buddies over at Mind Pump Media. So Andy and I had been wanting to talk about this topic because we see the membership changes in our studio for so long, and we happened to stumble upon these beauties at Mind Pump Media who have some incredible online training programs, but just some great content on their podcast. They have over 1,900 episodes, and one of them they actually delve into some of these ideas. So we're actually borrowing a bit of the content from them and sort of telling you in an F45 and sort of layman's relevant way, so that you guys can digest it. But credit to and kudos to those guys. And that was one of their jokes, by the way, where they said people call it and they say, hey, but what I'm worried about is I don't want to look like a bodybuilder. And of course, these guys have all competed, and they're like, trust me, you won't.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a very difficult thing to do. It's a highly specialized field.
yeah, like we can touch on that in two different ways, because women sometimes can be a little afraid of strength training, thinking that it's going to lead to this bulkiness. And I feel like this myth will never die, because it's really the exact opposite if you actually truly focus on properly strength training. And of course, there is some diet component to that to make sure that you are staying lean, but when you think of how much space muscle takes up compared to fat, muscle takes up way less space. So when you do build muscle in an area and you reduce your body fat, you will be a smaller person. You might sculpt and change the shape of certain muscles, which is definitely the idea with strength training, but it's not going to add more and more size. Especially women are always so afraid that they're just going to get bigger and bigger. It's not like we have the ability to really get that large. We have to do a lot of work to make things, get massive. And of course, everyone has different genetic makeups, but there's that piece. And then for men, sometimes they mention that I don't want to look like a bodybuilder, mostly because they want to acknowledge that it's not that important to them. They want to make it sound like, of course,
vitality is the key.
Yeah, and that's, we all should be remembering that the underlying or the undertone
and looking like Thor.
Yeah, which is also a nice byproduct. But yeah, I think that it's not about that we assume that everybody wants to look like a bodybuilder, that you need to have all these muscles. Like when we say build more muscle, have more muscle, and you're going to burn more fat or at rest, all these things, it doesn't mean you necessarily have capped shoulders and giant biceps. Like literally, it could be somebody who's just, by virtue of looking at the scan, has put on an extra 5 pounds of muscle, and they might not necessarily look all like jacked up after that. They might notice those small differences. That person's already got a better and faster metabolism.
Yeah, that's a good level set there in terms of like, what do we mean by adding more muscle? We don't mean becoming a bodybuilder. And it's tragic. And the dudes talk about that as well in Mind Pump Media, is that when we started thinking about resistance training, we automatically use bodybuilders as the proxy. This is what everyone's trying to look like. This is how everyone should eat. No. We need to separate having a quality physique and a healthy physique and quality muscle mass from being a bodybuilder. Again, that is a highly specialized field. Obviously, we know that they enhance, by the way, like taking nothing away from their work ethic. They have some of the best work ethic ever. They do everything right. And yes, they take exogenous testosterone and other supplements to get to those massive sizes, right? They're all doing it. So that's not what we're advocating for, right? So, but I think the other benefit of resistance training, we think about interest and we think about aesthetics, is this idea of sculpting and targeting certain muscle groups, right?
Toning is a very common word associated with that.
Right. I mean, sure, toning, getting lean, whatever you want to say. But this idea that if you do have either a physiological imbalance, like let's say there's something functionally, like maybe you can't turn your glutes on, this idea of being able to actually spot train the glutes. If I'm going for a run, there is a gait, there is a way to run properly to activate certain muscles in sequential order. But the idea of actually training with the purpose of building that muscle up and its function, that's unique to resistance training. And that's a great opportunity, both aesthetically and functionally, right? Maybe it's you're getting lower back pain and you're not able to turn your glutes on. So resistance training, and you look no further than the physiotherapist. What happens when someone gets out of a motor vehicle accident? The first thing they prescribe to them is what? Resistance training, right? You'd be a body weight or with bands, right? Why is that? Because it's less dangerous than, say, going on a run after a motor vehicle accident, right?
And most of the time you won't be able to. So if that's all you did for your workouts prior, well, guess what? You're going to have to change things up, because you're not going to be able, if your knee or your hips all banged up, you're not going to be going on runs to burn your calories anymore. So
right. But resistance training is the best way to target and sculpt, by and large, certain muscle groups.
Yeah.
Now, earlier I talked a little bit about this idea of metabolic. I talked about hormones a little. I said, hey, metabolic health comes with increased muscle mass, but there's this hormone effect too. And what am I talking about? Well, one, the more muscle we have, we're going to have a higher level of circulating testosterone, specifically after a bigger workout as well. Like if I do a big leg workout, let's say, I'm going to have that testosterone circulating, which is great for being anabolic. Ladies, don't worry. Men do produce naturally more testosterone than you. You will not turn into a bodybuilder overnight. But the more important hormone is insulin. The more muscle we have, the more sensitive we are to insulin. And because of the availability of cheap, highly processed foods in a Western diet, we are all getting bombarded with diets that are way too high in sugar. And our bodies on average, not everybody are not as sensitive to insulin, and they're becoming less and less as we age in the absence of resistance training in the moment to give those sugars somewhere to go, but also in the long run to create a sink where that tissue is insulin sensitive and it can take in those sugars and it can store them as muscle glycogen. The less muscle we have, we're not getting that benefit of insulin sensitivity, which is being linked to brain health, right? When we think of amyloid plaques, we think of Alzheimer's, and we read any book on Alzheimer's, they talk about sugars, right? So this idea of having this muscle mass to create an insulin sensitivity globally, systemically in the body, not only protects from body fat and diabetes, they call Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes, right? So there's this cerebral benefit as well in terms of our long run cerebral health.
Yeah, it's a hot topic right now. You hear a lot about insulin, and then there are some people that are like, oh, everyone wants to blame insulin. Now, don't assume that just because you're having a hard time losing a little bit of weight that you have an insulin problem or that you have a hormone problem. Don't assume anything. Get your blood work done. That's always first and foremost.
Yeah, we say that a lot, every podcast.
Yeah, and they'll be able to test your fasting glucose and get an idea and track it over time to make sure that it is being utilized properly. Because sometimes even ours have been slightly elevated, but it's because of the amount of training that we do too. And we're able to, utilize it, take it up, put it into the muscle cells like it should be. But some people are going to have a hard time genetically as well. So it could be a genetic predisposition. It could be your diet, but don't assume carbs are bad. And don't assume that if you're having a hard time losing weight, that those are all of the factors. It's just always good to take a look deeper.
Yeah, insulin's an amazing hormone. I mean, it has great benefits. Without it, we wouldn't exist. But it's about when it's bombarding, insulin receptor cells and tissues. Like muscle is the most, it has the highest concentration of insulin receptors. So the more we have, the more we can take those sugars circulating in our body and redirect them to a good place where they can be utilized, right?
The more you know.
I hope I'm right. I hope I got that fact right. We'll have to fact check me on that one. But I'm pretty sure I am. Yeah. So but it's just about understanding that these things, we demonize these things, right? We've got this whole like insulin thesis. One thing that's true, and I did a great podcast with Justin Glenn, who we've had on before. He's our naturopath, and unfortunately our SD card was busted, so we lost it. But one of the big ideas that he was talking about, and it came from me looking at my blood work with him, where he was saying there is research to show that there are thresholds. Generally, again, like you said, everyone's an individual. It's going to vary from person to person. It's not a binary thing. But there are thresholds where if you are not below a certain level of resting insulin, right, meaning your insulin's always up, it's chronically elevated, it's a growth because insulin's anabolic. Your body isn't able to synthesize or get into lipolysis, so breaking of fat to use for energy. It's constantly trying to store. It's not breaking tissue down. And so how can you lose weight when your body will not? It's grow anabolic.
Right.
So what we see is that when people lose weight and they lose body fat in particular, they're able to get their resting insulin down to a level where they can actually embark on a weight loss journey, do things like calorie counting, and actually see the benefit, right? Yeah. In tracking.
Because it might only make so much of a difference with calorie counting if you have an issue like this.
That's right. But you don't know if.
Right. Unless you get blood work done. But if this sounds like you and you've been kind of battling with the same 20 pounds for quite some time, up and down fluctuations, but you haven't really been able to go below this specific set point that you believe that your body should be able to, then you absolutely need to get blood work done. Don't assume that I just got to do more strength training and up my protein and everything should be fine. There could be something holding you back.
Or what we often see is in those scenarios, people plastic cardio. So they go for 6 runs a day,
that
500 F45 cardio workouts.
Yeah.
You're better if you're going to choose one to choose resistance training.
Yeah.
Back to the theme of this podcast is if I can build more muscle, more metabolically active tissue that makes me more insulin sensitive, perhaps beyond weight loss, I can bring that that number down.
But everyone's afraid to do that because it may or may not impact how quickly you do lose a little bit of weight. And it's the same thing when I ask people to go start with maintenance calories when they're tracking their calories, or go back up to maintenance. Everyone's always, that does not mean I'm going to gain weight now. But you need to be able to be metabolically flexible, but you also need to give your body a break from being under calories for so long. So if you are burning and you're having a hard time losing weight, but you're really just like burning at both ends at this point, because you're like, I don't know what else to do, I'm not losing weight, so I figure more cardio or more movement the better. Which in some cases, yes, like sometimes people, all they need to do is add an extra 10,000 steps a day and they see this huge change, or stop having that extra glass of wine each week, and energy expenditure in and out, it works, right, for a time. But if you're not noticing that those little changes or big changes, like doubling up on cardio or 2 hours of cardio compared to what it was before, obviously there's something holding you back there.
Well, the body's a master of efficiency. And so, that'll work for a period of time. And the body says, hey, wait a minute, we're burning a lot of calories here. We should probably slow down the rate at which we're doing that for this given activity, because we want to be efficient. We want to make sure that those calories count for more, that they give us more mobility, a few extra steps. And so the body adapts in such a way that it slows its metabolism down. And that's what we don't want. And that's why you see these people getting on these like 1,200 calorie diets. They're like, I can barely eat. Every time I have a quarter of a donut, I blow up. And so Andy talked about metabolic flexibility, and we're seeing a lot of research that says if you kind of play with calories, where say you're in a growth phase and you're in a surplus for 3 weeks, and then you have like a mini fast for like 3 or 4 days, not a full fast, but like say intermittent fasting, and you drop calories, a few hundred calories or 500 calories, you kind of see these profound effects. The body, that flexibility, that giving it, just like when we say in training, a little bit of new stimulus, it leads to profound impacts on weight loss, right? So just, or weight gain, right? Because sometimes you can't put on the weight, right? So it's that idea of like giving the body new stimuli to challenge it to be adaptive and flexible, not this kind of teaching how to operate on 500 calories. So when we give it 600, it's just like, got to store it, 13.
Yeah, that's you do not want to get to that place, because it's not impossible to come out of it. Obviously, that's what reverse dieting is for, if you've never heard of it. It is a slow process though, because if you want to heal your metabolism and you have to go the other way, first of all, you have to be comfortable with gaining body fat again, but it's not going to keep going and going and going. I think that's the other fear that a lot of people have that have been chronic dieters, like, but what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to go from here? You do need to just understand. You need to talk to a professional, like a naturopath or somebody like myself, a nutrition coach, that can guide you through the process so you feel, comforted and you understand what's about to change, and not just be totally, following what somebody else does or just hoping for the best and then getting down in the dumps when you see that things are changing in the direction you don't want. But I think it's important to note that being a chronic dieter is going to have more negative impacts and than anything, rather than be like, oh, the less I eat, the better. That's definitely not what we want to do anymore.
So staying on the theme and rounding out the theme of physiological adaptations, let's talk about bones, the less sexy part of this. We know a few members who were on the verge of osteopenia, but have been tracking their bone density. I think there's someone very close to me who maybe has reversed their osteopenia. But
one of our members,
when you are putting shear force on the bones and the muscles and you're doing resistance training, think about what the muscles are attached to. Through ligaments, they're attached to the bone. Through tendons, they're attached to one another. And all of this pulley type contractile motion obviously is moving the bone, which is then having some sort of weight at the end of it. So in a bicep curl, if you can see me in this video, I have something in my hand, my bicep is pulling on the radius and ulna, which is my forearm, to pull that weight up, right? So of course, all those other tissues have to hypertrophy or grow as well. The bone has to mineralize, the tendons need to thicken, the ligaments need to thicken. And then if we think about what happens when we age, we get in a muscle wasting or sarcopenic state. Everything starts to, I don't need this anymore. There's no stimulus. I've already had my babies. I don't need to reproduce. Why would I keep this around? This is metabolically expensive tissue. I want to be efficient. And so resistance training is the counter to that. It says, no, let's give this a reason to stick around. Let's give this reason. This person clearly needs to be functional. They keep putting this stimulus on my body. So I want to encourage everyone to think beyond just the muscles and the aesthetics, but also what's happening with all the tissue around that stuff, right? And by the way, this is not to say that like playing basketball or running or those sorts of things aren't acting against gravity and also calcifying bone. They are. Like we see there's a classic study that looked at female swimmers in their adolescent years versus female basketball players, and we saw the female basketball players had much thicker bones and less risk of osteopenia as we track them throughout their lives. Why is that? Because they're jumping and landing and doing plyometric activities with their whole body weight plus gravity landing versus floating in a pool,
Right.
albeit we're using our muscles and it's a great cardiovascular activity, we don't have that impact of gravity.
Mhm.
So, again, but resistance training is going to help you build that strength in all of your bones if you have a full body routine, right? So the upper body, lower body, and everything in between.
Yeah, and to touch a little bit on the nutrition side of that, obviously, I think we've talked about this so many times, but it's always worth mentioning the amount of protein that you consume will not only assist in repairing your muscle tissue, but of course it's going to repair all of the tissue. So amino acids are responsible for those ligaments, the joints, all of that,
absolutely.
connective tissues. So we do need to give it those repairing materials as well. And as you age, you will need even more protein than you do right now. So
Crazy.
if you haven't got a handle on getting in enough protein yet, it's not just about, oh, I'm working out, I better eat enough protein. And when I'm not working out, forget it. It's actually even more important to eat enough protein as you age. And even if you're not working out, if you're healing from injuries, the list goes on. And it doesn't mean that it's just chicken breasts and steaks. It's like whatever, type of protein that you like to consume. There's so much variety out there. So if you've never gotten a handle or ever looked at your macros before, that's definitely going to be the key to longevity and health as well.
And here's your easy formula is you're shooting for 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Easiest way to look at it.
Yeah.
If you can shoot that, you're not too high. You're certainly not too low. There's no risk. You can go up to 3 times that without any risk, but that's a great target. I think why they say don't go 3 times that amount is because there's a lot of diminishing returns, right? When you get up into the 2 grams per pound of body weight, what's the marginal benefit for the cost that you're paying to get that protein?
Right, it's going to be a little bit more expensive.
Honestly, the curve goes like this. If you want to start building, you get to the 1 gram, your muscle building curve is here, and 2 grams, 3 grams, 3.5, kind of flat line. So if it's costing me double to get that extra little bit, do I need it? Is it important for vitality and my fitness goals? Am I going to the Olympics? I don't know. Maybe Spencer and Aaron and all that. Maybe they do need to be thinking about that. Probably not us.
Yeah.
As much as we like to believe that,
And there's, on another podcast, I think we've gotten into it before, but we can get into some more nuanced supplementation that can really benefit people, that can help them throughout that process and just make those little bit of differences, rather than needing to eat 3 whole grams per pound of body weight, adding a little extra leucine, especially if you're vegan, that can make a world of a difference in regards to keeping your muscle mass or gaining some as well. All
right, let's talk about some of the other sweet benefits of resistance training in terms of return on investment, if you will. So a lot of the research is indicating what we're seeing is that, and I think of Dr. McGuff when I think of this one, who had that great book, Body by Science. And he talked about minimum effective doses.
In the room over there. I was thinking
weird.
about it.
But it's the idea that once you have that foundation, it takes only about 1/8 the amount of stimulus to maintain that muscle mass. What do I mean? If I've been training for a few years and I've sort of built up my body set point, I'm happy with it, I might only need to train once a week hard. When I say hard, I mean focused. I mean a set to fatigue to maintain them. Right now, am I going on stage with that type of approach? No. Growth and building, accumulating muscle mass, yeah, that takes a little more stimulus. But isn't it great to know that if I went on vacation and did some push-ups and maybe some pull-ups to fatigue, that I'm not really losing a ton of muscle mass, provided my protein and my calories are up? Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, other than again being more of a cardio junkie, and I hate to harp on this so much, but it's kind of the it's the opposite in a way. But rather than assuming that we need to do cardio when we're on vacation, do you really want to have to do a run every single day? I mean, maybe it makes you feel good, rather than to think about having that stimulus. It's not going to keep your muscle mass around. It might help you feel a little bit leaner throughout that time, but you're actually again going to get more bang for your buck if you just did one strength training workout on your vacation rather than ran every day. Well,
when we say leaner, what's interesting is that when I come back from tennis, I've lost 5 pounds, and I go woohoo, that little voice in my head that's been trained to look at the scales. Yeah, but what is it? It's water weight. I just sweat it out.
Yeah.
I drink a few, have my protein shake, I have breakfast, and drinking water. By midway through the day, I haven't even had dinner yet, and I'm back to where I was. It's water, right? And so we get, we start getting ready for vacations. We're like, we're running every day. We keep using running, guys. Sorry, to keep harping on the running. I have nothing against running. It could be the elliptical, could be tennis, it could be whatever,
it
right?
Could be
cardiovascular activity.
On cardio workouts at F45 too. Some people skip all the strength days,
Yeah. And so, which sorry, I gotta say our cardio workouts being
It's still
hybrid, they
different.
mix in some strength.
Yeah,
But
it's still
anyways,
way better, but like, I'm just trying to even the
yeah,
playing
even the
field.
playing field, that's fair. But what we see is that, going back to the first point, that metabolic flexibility and speeding up the metabolism, if you're getting ready for a trip and you want to kind of, stay lean on that trip, I'd encourage you not to do a ton of cardio before you go and then just go party. I would encourage you to build as much muscle as you can. So when you go, you've got that big engine and you're just burning things up. Like that's what I would advocate for. Now, does it happen overnight? No, absolutely it doesn't. It definitely takes time to build muscle. So when I say work out once every 8 days or 1/8 the amount of volume, be mindful that it takes years or it could take a year to build that up, but maintaining it for such a low investment of time, pretty sweet deal.
Yeah, I mean, again, best bang for your buck. Doesn't really get more obvious than that for me. But hey,
The results come back. So we've all heard this idea of muscle memory. It sounds hokey pokey and goofy. Muscles have memories, they don't have brains. No, but there's these things in muscles called satellite cells, and your body
that's
learns.
cool.
Yeah, your body learns how to recreate. So it's got those neuromuscular connections. It's like playing any sport. If you're riding a bike, they say, like, so if even like playing hockey, like I'll go out once or twice or 3 times and I start to get my hands back, right? My body remembers those neuromuscular connections, how to fire the muscle, but then the body actually learns how to build muscle, and it can actually hypertrophy the muscle very easy. So what we see is those strength gains and that muscle tissue will come back rapidly once you embark on a new resistance training program. So easy to maintain, comes back very quickly. So the return, again, for a lifelong investment in strength training, very high.
Yeah, and if you can, before women out there, before you're getting pregnant, if you already have a solid base of muscle beforehand, being able to maintain it, stay and you will be able to do a lot more strength training than you will cardio training, depending on where you started from beforehand. And that's going to be something that I think, again, bouncing back, as they always say, but I think that, of course, people assume that you should be able to bounce back so quickly. That's not the case, but I think it's important to note that strength training is going to get you there faster, and it's going to help you heal your body quicker as well. As far as, there's a lot of stuff moving around there, your organs, your muscles, everything been stretched. You need strength training to, keep it together or heal it afterwards. And again, I just think that if you have a base beforehand, it's gonna be so much easier afterwards. Now, if you haven't, and you're listening to this and you're pregnant and you don't have a strength training base beforehand, it's never too late to even start implementing even a little bit of resistance training during pregnancy. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's lots of
the thinking right now is that we don't want radical changes to our activity routine, right? So we don't want to go from 0 to hero, but doing something for sure. Some isometric push-ups and planks and stuff like that for sure. It's not risky.
Absolutely. And then afterwards, I think most people always assume that it's going to be cardio and diet is the only way to go, but it's really not. I think that we all need to.
We have to disassociate, we can't crap on cardio because, there's capillarization, there's great, there's oxygen delivery, there's the meditative benefits, the cerebral benefits of it. And certainly, there is weight loss. I mean, especially if we're implementing, say, fartlek training or some sort of interval training in our cardio. But it's just about return on investment or choosing that over resistance training.
Yeah.
Like I don't feel bad saying that you need to have at least one day. At the very least, use the word cardio junkie. If you prefer cardio, you gotta throw a day of strength training in. Do not take the summer off and say, I'm gonna rollerblade this summer. I got this new pair of rollerblades, and well, it's the same, right? No, it's not the same for all these reasons we're talking about. We just continue to learn. I think, the other one that's huge is this idea of, I talked about neuromuscular connections earlier, but this cerebral benefit. Think about it. When I'm coaching in the gym, I'm trying to teach people that our objective isn't just to move a weight from point A to point B, but our objective is to contract the muscle as hard as we can that happens to move that weight, right? That moving that weight, using that weight is a stimulus to help us, to aid us in contracting the muscle, right? And so it's this idea when we're training, we're doing resistance training, it's very cerebrally demanding to be able to focus in, dial in, and recruit as much muscle tissue as we can to perform that movement and contract that muscle maximally. Huge. And, when we think about this idea of staying sharp as we age, this idea even of being present in the moment, because how difficult is it to be present? Come to an F45 workout and tell me in strength that you're thinking about the job the whole time. You're not, you're present. So there's that benefit, but there's the long-term benefit of those neuromuscular connections, which keeps us young cerebrally. We talk about Alzheimer's. We talk about this idea of use it. If you don't use it, you'll lose it. Resistance training is giving us that stimulus between the physical and the cerebral and that connection.
Absolutely. And I see that, the more you do resistance training, the better you get at that. In the beginning, you might just be sort of going through the motions a little bit. And that's what the coaches are there for, to see, okay, are we really digging deep here? Are we actually focusing on where we want to feel it? So always ask yourself, where are you feeling it? And if you're not feeling it where you think you should, then figure out, what would I need to do? How would I need to stand differently? Or how would I need to hold this differently so that I would feel it in the right place? And that is just like a whole another level of the cognitive benefit and
enjoyment,
connection.
quite frankly.
Yeah.
It really changes it for you.
Getting
like,
the most out of it, right? You're like, yeah, I feel exactly where I want to, especially if you are trying to build or hypertrophy a specific muscle. So if it was this part of my shoulder that I'm going for, which I'm pointing to the middle part of my shoulder, I realize that, if you're listening to this, you can't see that, that you want to make sure you're feeling it burn in that specific part. Well, would I have my weight out in front of me, or would I have my weight out to the side? Obviously, you're going to feel that little bit of a difference. And that's why we always, have those variations of different shoulder workouts or any type of exercise, so that you feel it in different parts, so that you can build it and change the shape of it how you like, which is kind of the added benefit. So if something actually, if you notice while you're working out, it doesn't hit that muscle group and it's supposed to, it could just be anatomically that wasn't the position for you, and that stretch isn't getting you there. But maybe if you change the foot position, your hand position, you're going to feel it where you want to feel it, then that might be best for you.
I love it. Absolutely. It's really a lifelong learning. I'm still, for me, the last 18 months have really been about how my feet are engaged in the ground, which is something I took for granted, like squatting and just these like paddles just being on the ground. Yeah, they happen to be there. And then
now we get to see him wear these fun shoes.
Yeah. There's that, and there's the core engagement, right? And when I say core engagement, I don't just mean like flexing my six pack for the camera.
Mhm.
I mean, I like to think I have a six pack. I said that it's six pack muscle. But fishing for compliments. Yeah. But it's also it's that just sucking the belly button in and using the transverse abdominis. Is that like, and then what happens is crazy. This translation to like walking down the street, you're pulling it in and you're not even trying. And that's great because you're activating that muscle and you're burning more calories and your back straightens up a little and your posture's better and you look more proud. And so it all comes together. So, it's just such a beautiful, brilliant thing. The health benefits are so profound. The in the moment benefits are so profound. The aesthetic benefits are sweet. What it's so weird. The world's weird right now. It's like polarized. You've got this crazy like divide where people either don't have the education or the resources, and we need to solve this problem to eat properly, right? I mean, there's a lot of, conspiracies around kind of the food industry and like, lobbying and not making eating healthy and clean easy. So there's that, and going on a rabbit hole there.
Oh, yeah.
And that's tragic. But then you have this other amazing side, thanks to social media, where it's like, and some people, look, I mean, they're not certified. They shouldn't be giving advice, but whatever. There's a movement of like being healthy is cool. Being healthy at any age is cool. Exercise is amazing. And so that is something that we all need to lean into. And there is increasing support for resistance training, right? But, if we leave you with anything, it's that you need to include that. I say need, I'm just saying need on purpose. Include some component of resistance training, even if you scale it back for a little bit, needs to be there 365 days a year, meaning there's no 3 months I'm not going to do resistance training because I'm quick walking outside, or I'm just doing the stairs. Stairs are sweet, but it doesn't replace a well-balanced full body resistance training program.
No.
Any age, any sex.
And further that, because it is very easy to associate strength training and being lean, or the way that we talk about physiques as always being like people that look like us. But that's not the case. You can actually benefit from all of this without actually being able to see every last like cut and line in all of your muscles. Just remember that it is very unique to your body type and and how you're actually activating these muscles, and how you might be bettering your body composition. But the goal is not to necessarily get shredded and lean all the time. Yeah, it can just happen, and you'll notice things that you didn't notice before. But I think it's it's easy to assume like, well, I'm so far from that point, or I don't I don't want to
It's
look like
that or
that,
nothing. That's the only reason to do it. And JB and Andy are talking about these things that like happen to come with resistance training. It's the opposite. If you should focus on these health outcomes, and maybe if you really care, you'll get aesthetic and through dietary intervention largely, right? And maybe some genetics. But like the resistance training in and of itself, take the dietary intervention out of it, it has all those benefits for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think, that last piece would be, if you really wanted to take the next step further, you have to get totally interested. Get interested.
Totally get those t-shirts made.
Yeah.
But start somewhere, like, again, goes back to what I was saying in the beginning, right? Like, do I think that I'm going to build, doesn't even matter, but like, that's a whole nother story. But do I think I'm going to build bigger arms or stronger legs, maybe stronger, but bigger legs this summer while I'm playing 4 aggressive matches of tennis a week, doing a few F45 cardio workouts? Heck no, I'm not going to, because I'm using so much of my body's energy for performance versus building and recovery, right? So why do I say that again? I say that again because it's like, look, let's first get a prioritized approach to resistance training. And when we can crush that and you prove it to yourself, I'm not talking 2 months, I'm talking like 2, 3, 4, 5 consistent months, then it's like, okay, cool. I love this stuff. I'm actually interested in it, not because JB told me to be interested in it, because I'm interested in it. I like it. I enjoy going there. When I don't do it, I miss it. When you get to that point, okay, let's turn the volume up in the aesthetics if that's important to you. But know that you're getting these benefits for the 7th time. You're getting these benefits from just doing the resistance training regularly. So don't cut it out, whether that's keeping your F45 membership and in some capacity and coming to your strength workouts or going a good life or wherever the heck you go. You need to keep pushing body weight or bars to keep your body under load and bands, whatever it is. Work against gravity,
at
resist.
2 times a week. What's our recommendation for, and what we can give like
I mean, I think it's very like, at a minimum, 2 full body workouts a week, I'd say.
That would be a bare minimum.
Now, I know I said like 1 every 8 days. I'm talking about, I'm going away for 3 months to Timbuktu, and resistance training has become such a low priority to me. I can expect potentially working out once every 8 days with the right diet to maintain my muscle. But what do we recommend? At the very least 2 days of at least a 30-minute full body
just
routine.
A good place to start. If you haven't started, body weight bands for the 2 times a week is absolutely going to start to have all of those benefits. And then you build upon that over time.
The world's your oyster. Google's right there. If you want it, it's right there. Look up body weight routine, look it up anywhere, get some basic movements going, or come see us at 45 Hamilton downtown. Pretty sweet place too. Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays, and many of our hybrid days we're getting under load.
Yeah, the hybrid days are really, turning it up with the resistance as well.
Especially Fridays. Fridays.
Miami Nights is coming back soon. If anybody's big man.
I know the OGs are excited. All right, guys. Well, look, it's been a slice. We're so happy to be back. We want to commit to doing this more regularly, getting our newsletter going again, all those sweet F45 things that we do. Don't be afraid. We would love to do a live Q&A session one day in the future as we get more serious in this podcast. So
you can always send us questions on Instagram. DM us. I'll, keep a little backlog of questions for the next time, and anything literally, from training to nutrition to a day in the life of like asking us what we do. We'll definitely like to do a feature.
Even perspective, right? This idea of counterbalance that you and I have been talking about, which I think is huge. Very simple, but not easy. This idea like, okay, so how do you go, crush 10 beers on the weekend, which we don't advocate doing regularly, but then still get up for your workout and maintain your shape, right? I mean, it's this idea of withdrawals and deposits into that health bank account. Are you managing it properly, or are you falling completely off? So maybe that's a whole nother podcast about how to counterbalance.
Yeah, I mean, the summer is all about that.
That's what that's your next podcast.
I would say 70-30 is more likely for the summer.
But we should do that. We should talk a little bit about how we manage partying and staying in shape. I think that'd be a sweet, realistic, awesome podcast.
That is,
all the supplements, the sleep.
Pulled into making sure you stay tuned for our next episode.
And don't we have the F45? Let's do a little plug for F45 Playoffs before we hit the 50-minute mark. So we're teaming up with, maybe you should give the details, but it's a charitable adventure. It is a competitive adventure. It is potentially a drink or two adventure. What's going on?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are doing our playoffs on August 19th, 2022. And it'll be a Friday. So we wanted to hopefully get some people that haven't gone away for the weekend at that point. Playoffs, if you've never done it before, is 10 stations, and it's always the same set of exercises, and it's just a little bit of a sort of fit
It's a World
benchmark
Series
test.
of F45
Yeah, yeah.
or fit test.
Or
Yes.
like a, kind of like a CrossFit Games. I don't know. There's lots of ways to look at it, but it is like a benchmark fitness test. And we do that multiple times, usually multiple times a year, at least twice, so that you can test yourself and see, your repetitions and your point systems and how you're improving over time. So it's just 10 minutes.
Which
but
we
it-
love, because honestly, when we do our challenges, although we're looking within with our metrics for measuring, saying, hey,
Mhm.
what's the body comp? People can get very aesthetically focused, and
Mhm.
playoffs is nothing about that. Playoffs is
Yeah.
just about showing that muscle you built,
Performance.
performance.
Yeah.
Which
and
we
it's,
love.
It's a doozy. Like that 10 minutes will rock you.
Yeah.
So be prepared if you do want to
And
partake in that.
I think I have a title within the community. I'm getting grayer though.
Although
There was a gentleman from the outside who beat me. It happened.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name.
And then I think Caitlin Sweeney or Krista Travers are up there as far as second.
I'm going to correct you, Aaron.
Really?
Coach Aaron.
Of course.
Who is going to Finland to compete with Spencer, I believe, in the worlds of this distance that they just did. Crazy athletes, those
Or
two.
Ironman.
So I might be getting cleaned up this year. We'll have to see.
Yes. And in any case, if you do not want to partake in the playoffs itself, you can help score for your friends. So you can go around and help count the repetitions. And it's just going to be an F45 social of sorts. So we will have some food and afterwards we're going to go to Merritt Brewery.
So why are we partnering with Merritt? So we met the dudes at Merritt at Empowerment Square. So you guys know that we support Empowerment Square. We absolutely love what they do for helping marginalized youth and families new to Canada succeed in our community from an educational and vocational perspective. So they do great work. So we're huge supporters of them. And so we said, hey, why not, we met them at an event because they also like us have a scholarship. And we said, hey, why not work together to do some activities, some fun and some fundraising as a team. And everyone loved that idea. So lo and behold, we're working with them, and are they bringing a tent, or is it just that we're going to Merritt after?
No, we're gonna go to Merritt afterwards because they did inform me that there's a lot of permits and things that they would need to do to be having alcohol at our location. So we're gonna go there afterwards. So it'll probably be about an hour and a half at the studio, and then we'll go there shortly afterwards.
Shower.
Yeah, you can shower at the studio too. But we'll go there for lots of post workout drinks. Beer is actually pretty good for a post workout drink.
Yeah, especially if you're going back to cardio now, and even maybe resistance training, but more so cardio. Talk about muscle glycogen, this idea of super compensation. So draining your muscle glycogen and then refilling it back up with a carb after your workout. Body saying, give me some fuel to store, and you're saying, here, have a beer.
Yeah, here's the beer.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And there's many oxidants in there too, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it'll be a nice little evening, and hopefully if you can come for all of it or some of it, doesn't really matter, but I think it'll be a nice way to connect again with the community before the summer's over.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun things happening now that we're focused just on Hamilton. Sorry, all guys, love you. You got good leaders now.
Yeah,
but now that we're focused on Hamilton,
yeah,
Let's
we
get
can
after it.
prioritize and plan some good stuff. So we hope to see you guys there. If you have any questions though for any future podcasts, don't hesitate to reach out. Anything at all on the at F45 Hamilton Downtown is our Instagram, and that's where you can contact us the easiest. Not so frequently on Facebook. And then our personal accounts are at the Effective. So the_Effective is Justin's, and mine is at Live Aligned without the E, so LIV. And you can always reach out and ask any questions, and we would be happy to answer them either personally or in our next podcast.
and definitely go check out our friends at Mind Pump podcast. They're sweet.
Yeah.
And they're very
If you want to
entertaining.
get interested a little bit more, that's definitely a place to start and go back to some really old episodes.
Yeah,
look
they
at
get
the-
some
the
good stuff.
titles.
And they timestamp it, which we're going to try and do this as well. But they timestamp it, so they banter for a while, kind of like we're doing. We could. That'd be funny for Francois. But no, so they'll timestamp it, and you can actually dig into certain moments in the podcast to finally get to what it is that you're looking for. It's a really efficient way but they're pretty funny though. I get along with them. Hopefully they get along with me, but I certainly like them. So I like when they banter. They're pretty smart guys.
Just knows man crush on you guys. So if you
Certainly
want to
do.
invite us over to a podcast together, we would be eternally grateful.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap it there. This is getting long in the tooth. 54 minutes. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you for resistance class soon. Take it easy.
So aggressive.